Welcome back to NO To Lashon Hara, day 45. This entire series is being done as Zechut for Refuah Shlema for Chana Bat Mefega. Shmirat HaLashon is about making sure that negative speech doesn't damage someone. However, we were just as concerned about the person who might be damaged from not hearing that Lashon Hara, quote unquote, as we were about the subject of the Lashon Hara. So there are certain cases that we've alluded to quite a few times already, that a person is not only allowed to speak negatively, so to speak, about someone, but is actually obligated to do so. Now, in order for this to be true, there are conditions that have to be met, and those conditions form the basis of what's called to'elet, which means that there is a constructive purpose for our speaking about someone's negative sides. Imagine someone is going to get married to someone, or thinking about getting married to someone. They're thinking about doing business with someone, or perhaps working for someone, and you know that that person is a thief, or that person is abusive, or that person is what have you. So in each of those scenarios, not only is it correct on behalf of the person to ask, it's also correct on behalf of you to be able to share the information that you know firsthand. But there are requirements in order to ensure that this negative speech actually becomes constructive because of the fact that it saves someone from being damaged or from being hurt. The first two conditions are the ones we're going to discuss today. The first one is this idea that everything has to be done within the window, within the framework of to'elet, which means that it's being done for a specific constructive purpose. So what people don't realize oftentimes is that, imagine as an example, I need that information because it's very important for me. I come to you and I ask you knowing that you worked for that person and you share that negative information. I was allowed to listen to it because it was to'elet for me, but you were not allowed to tell it because even though it was to'elet for me, you did not know that it was to'elet, that it was for a constructive purpose. That means that if you had to answer the question in heaven, did what you do, was that right or wrong? It was wrong because you didn't know that it was for a positive purpose, which meant that that speech was actually forbidden. So when you go, even if you have carte blanche to be able to ask the question, because it's to'elet on your side, if you get that information on the sly from the other person, what winds up happening is he then has spoken Lashon Hara because he did not know it was to'elet. And that is a sin because the Torah tells us that we're not allowed to place a stumbling block in front of a blind man. Now, this can be a little bit tricky because a lot of times when someone is looking into information about someone before they do a business deal or before they go out on a date, they don't want the other person to know that they're looking into them. So they'll casually ask someone, and it is for to'elet, it's for a specific constructive purpose on my part, but they'll ask someone casually, so what do you know about this guy? Or what'd you hear about this fellow? Or I heard that there was some issues with this guy when he got fired. In all of those cases, even though it's to'elet for you, it is not to'elet for the speaker. And that would actually be not only a sin on their part, but one on yours as well, because you are causing them to sin by placing a stumbling block in front of them. This, therefore, means that the person has to be speaking and giving you that answer coming from a place of constructively helping you and not because he's carelessly harming someone else. The second condition is that the person who's giving the information has to be so careful not to exaggerate even a little bit. And that exaggeration sometimes, even though he's only doing it in order for it to sound a bit more convincing or like he's got some juice or some gossip to be able to share, so it might be to'elet, but whatever is exaggerated is not to'elet. Number one, because it's not true. Number two, because it's actually damaging over and above the constructive purpose of the question itself. Now, there are cases where a person, you might say that the person is not honest. Now, that is enough for a person to shut down a business deal. Now, what did you mean when you said he's not honest? You meant that once upon a time, you saw that he, made a phone call during work hours without telling his boss. Now, it's true that that's not honest. But when you tell someone he's not honest, they don't think you mean making a phone call during work hours. they might be guilty of exactly the same thing, and they would not hesitate for 1 second to go out on a date with someone who does exactly what they do, or to do business with someone who does exactly what they do. But because you couched it in those words, he's not honest. That exaggeration or that lack of clarity or specificity means that you've actually spoken Lashon Hara and broken the clause of To'elet, because you have not communicated exactly what it was for only a constructive purpose. You communicated something very vague, which allowed the person to make his own assumptions about it, in which case that is exactly what we're worried about with Lashon Hara. There are 5 more conditions to To'elet, and we will cover each and every one of them in the following recordings.